Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into the phenomenon, the force of nature that is RuPaul Andre Charles. If you think you know the story of the host of Drag Race, well, think again. We're talking about someone who started out as this like underground icon in the gritty Atlanta scene and is now, I mean, a certified global media mogul. Fortune magazine didn't really mince words, did they? They called him arguably the most commercially successful drag queen in the United States.
And that commercial success, it's matched only by his absolute media dominance. It's incredible. We're tracing the life of a drag queen, sure, but also a television host, singer, producer, writer, and actor all rolled into one. And when you look at the accolades, I mean, the scale is just... it's unbelievable. 14 Primetime Emmy Awards. That makes him the most awarded person of color in Emmy history. Plus a Tony Award as a producer, no less, and even a Guinness World Records title. He didn't just break into the mainstream. He kind of built this, like, platinum-plated throne right in the middle of it.
Absolutely, yeah. So our mission today really is to trace that phenomenal journey. It's sometimes a contradictory one, isn't it? We can look at the foundations, you know, the trauma and self-creation back in the 80s. We'll analyse how he managed to penetrate the notoriously straight corporate world in the 90s. That's a story in itself. And then, yeah, dissect the staggering scale of the Drag Race dynasty. But crucially, we have to look impartially at the complexities. You know, the activism, the identity controversies, and those surprising business decisions, like his involvement in environmentally criticised practices. That's something we need to touch on. We're basically following the sources here to understand how the ultimate shapeshifter built his world. Okay, so to understand the global icon, we really have to start with the human, right? RuPaul Andre Charles, born November 17, 1960, San Diego, California. His parents were originally from Louisiana, and he often talks about his upbringing as happening in a broken home. Catholic background, apparently facing some financial struggles too.
Right. And the name itself, it tells a story of those roots, doesn't it? He was named by his mother, Ernestine Tony Charles, and that key short name, Ru, it comes directly from roux, R-O-U-X, which, you know, any Southern cook knows is that fundamental French base, the thickener for gumbo and Creole stews.
Oh, okay. So it signifies something foundational.
Exactly, foundational. And later in life, DNA analysis kind of cemented his heritage, too. Showed roughly 70% African and 30% European ancestry.
But the sources, they make it pretty clear that his childhood was, well, far from stable. We can't really gloss over the traumatic event he's discussed, which he himself called pivotal. Really pivotal to his later psychological state. This happened after his mother found out his father was having an affair. And in this, like, fit of immense distress, she tried to set their house and his father's car on fire.
Yeah, that's intense. The sources quote RuPaul describing the effect of that event as causing this profound dissociation, where he essentially kind of disconnected himself from his body and the reality of the moment. That kind of early trauma, the volatility, the dramatic collapse of the, you know, traditional home structure, it's really crucial context, I think, for understanding why he later adopted drag. Drag, for him, seems to have become this ultimate form of escapism, but also control, like a way to shape a beautiful identity out of all that chaos.
And that need for self-determination, it showed up pretty quickly in his school life, didn't it? He dropped out of Patrick Henry High School. Was it 10th grade?
10th grade, yeah. But rather than just drifting, he made a really deliberate move, almost urgent, it sounds like, towards the art.
Right.
Precisely. At just 15, he moves with his sister Renetta to Atlanta, specifically to study performing arts. And you got to remember, Atlanta in the late 70s, early 80s, it was this artistic incubator, you know, especially for people pushing boundaries. He initially struggled, worked for a bit at Atlanta's Plaza Theater, but he was committed to music and filmmaking, really laying the groundwork there for what became this, like, multidisciplinary career.
And he didn't just, like, join the scene. He kind of helped define the underground scene, didn't he? His debut was on Atlanta's public access show, the American Music Show, back in '82.
Yeah, that show was something else. Public access, super low budget, high concept, really irreverent. And he became this frequent boundary-pushing guest on it. It was a perfect platform for him then.
That public access stuff led right into underground cinema, didn't it?
It did. And this wasn't Hollywood, you know. This was raw DIY creation. He created and starred in this low-budget film called Star Booty, and he released an album with the same name. This project, he often calls it trash cinema. It showed this really early understanding that he could craft his own narrative and distribute it himself, even if it was just to a niche audience at first.
What's fascinating about his live performance scene in the 80s is just how varied it was. All the different things he was doing. Performing at Atlanta's celebrity club that was managed by Larry T., right? Who became a big name himself.
Yeah, Larry T. And RuPaul's acts were truly genderbender style. Like, he worked as a bar dancer sometimes, but also performed with his band Wee Wee Pole.
Wee Wee Pole, the name alone.
Tells you everything, right? Irreverent is the word. The sources also mention him working as a backup singer for Glenn Meadmore, alongside another now legendary figure, the drag queen Vaginal Davis. This whole period was about honing the craft, you know? Not just performance, but the shock factor, the theatricality that became his trademark.
Okay, so we've got this talented, boundary-pushing artist in the Atlanta underground. But how did that jump happen? The jump to national consciousness? It's kind of subtle at first, wasn't it? Like, people probably saw him without knowing who he was.
Oh, yeah, the power of the early music video era. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
He appeared as a dancer, an extra, in the B-52's Love Shack video, 1989.
That was Shaq. That song was massive.
It's absolutely massive. So it provided this key, maybe anonymous, but still a visual connection to broader mainstream culture, right as he was starting to split his time between Atlanta and New York City.
So by the early 90s, the sources place him working the Georgia club circuit, but also doing those signature genderbender acts in NYC. Places like the Pyramid Club, which was iconic.
Totally iconic. And crucially, he became this regular, high-profile performer at the annual Wigstock Drag Festival. He even appeared in the documentary Wigstock, the movie. So this sustained, high-energy, two-city underground existence, that was the launch pad. He was perfecting the persona just before the explosion.
Yeah. And it's important to note that shift in identity he was playing with, right?
Right. He was using drag, but his style was really rooted in defying rigid categories. He was this creature of the club kid scene, post-punk, gender-fluid New York, which allowed him to burst onto the scene in '93, not just as a drag queen, but as this hyper-glamorous, hyper-visible superstar.
And that explosion has arrived in 1993.
Yeah.
And man, it was loud. This is the era of Supermodel, the moment RuPaul basically became a household name.
Yeah. And the circumstances around that album, Supermodel of the World, they're fascinating. It was this high-energy dance house album released on a rap label, Tommy Boy Records.
Right. That juxtaposition.
Exactly. Think about it. A full glam, like 6'7" drag queen releasing a chart-focused album on a label known for hip-hop. It really speaks to the shrewd marketing foresight, I think, of the producers and the label seeing that potential crossover appeal.
And the single Supermodel, You Better Work.
Yeah.
It became this verifiable phenomenon. It wasn't just a club hit, though it definitely was, that peaked at #2 on the Hot Dance Music Club Play chart.
Right. But the key was the mainstream infiltration, peaking at number 45 on the Billboard Hot 100. For an artist like him at that time, that was a gigantic crossover success, just huge.
And how did that happen? It was the visuals, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely driven by visual media. MTV gave that video heavy rotation, like constant rotation, which gave him instant access to millions of homes, places that had zero exposure to drag culture before. And then came the TV appearances, performing on the RuPaul Show. That was a massive legitimizing step. That combination just turned him into this undeniable cultural force practically overnight.
And he proved it wasn't a fluke, right? The follow-up singles did well, too.
They did, especially in the clubs. Back to My Roots and a Shady Now Prance both hit #1 on the Billboard Hot Dance Music Club Play chart. So the music career was solidifying. But RuPaul, he was already moving on to break the next corporate barrier.
He was just a master of leveraging visibility, wasn't he?
Totally. In '94, he collaborates on that duet with Elton John, Don't Go Breaking My Heart. And they performed it together in the San Remo Festival in Italy, which is a big deal.
Huge deal.
Yeah, this wasn't just some friendly collaboration, Performing on a major international stage with an established icon like Elton John, that just cemented his global star power, showed he could operate at the industry's highest level.
But the real cultural earthquake, I think, was the Ambe Cosmetics campaign.
Oh, yeah. Signing that modeling contract, becoming the first drag queen to land a major cosmetics campaign.
Revolutionary is the word.
It really was, because it was deeply political while being deeply commercial, right? He wasn't just selling lipstick. He was raising money for the MAC AIDS Fund, using corporate capital for a crucial cause. And furthermore, the visuals, they were uncompromising. Billboards everywhere featuring him in full drag. 6'7", with that simple text, I am the MAC girl. That image challenged traditional gender and beauty standards in every single major city, all at once.
And it proved he could translate that persona into acting, too, seamlessly. In '95, he pops up on ABC's daytime soap, All My Children. and famously played Mrs. Cummings, Jan's guidance counselor, in the Brady Bunch movie.
Yeah, he was demonstrating that drag wasn't just this niche act, it was a character capable of entering basically any narrative space.
But the platform he created for himself, that was the pinnacle of this era, wasn't it? The RuPaul Show?
Oh, absolutely. Ran on VH1 from 96 to 98, hosted alongside his longtime collaborator, Michelle Visage. It was a talk show, sure, but it was anything but traditional.
The sources really emphasize the caliber of the guests, which speaks volumes about his cultural gravity at that point. You're talking Cher, Diana Ross,
Ravana,
and the Backstreet Boys, hosting the biggest names across rock, pop, legends.
Right. But what's critical, though, is the content. The sources highlight that the RuPaul show wasn't just celebrity gossip. Not at all. It tackled serious topics, stuff that was really rare for 90s television, especially on a channel like VH1, They discussed Black empowerment, female empowerment, misogyny, liberal politics. It was revolutionary because RuPaul, in full drag, was providing this essential cultural and political commentary. Not as a guest, right, but as the host, the one determining the conversation.
So after the show ended, his music continued, though maybe with a bit less mainstream noise. Foxy Lady in 96, that Christmas album Ho 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 in 97, which did well, and then Red Hot in 2004. But this early 2000s period, it seems like it was a challenging time for him to maintain that same level of visibility he'd had in the mid-90s.
Yeah, he spoke quite candidly about that struggle, getting press coverage during that post-talk show era. He found it increasingly difficult, he said, to generate attention for his music or other projects, unless he agreed to conform to what he called the role that the mainstream press is assigned to gay people, which is as servants of straight ideals.
Wow. That's a devastating quote, really. It suggests the media was fine with him as long as he was, serving up a palatable, non-threatening novelty act. But they balked when he insisted on being taken seriously as this complex, multifaceted, politically minded artist.
I think that's exactly it. And it feels like a huge turning point, right? That fatigue, maybe, and the realization that the established media structure just wouldn't fully accept him on his own terms. It feels like that spurred the next and arguably most important phase of his career. If the mainstream wouldn't give him the platform he deserved, he was going to build a bigger, better global one himself. And that right there is the genesis of the Drag Race dynasty.
Right. That new, entirely self-determined media platform. It launched in 2009 with RuPaul's Drag Race. Started humbly enough, didn't it? On Logo, which was an expanded cable channel back then.
Yeah.
Simple premise. Drag queens compete to be America's next drag superstar.
Yeah, looked like a modest reality show, but it was actually this meticulously crafted, business and cultural machine from the get-go. We're now, 17 seasons into the U.S. version? It's incredible longevity. But the real strategic brilliance, I think, is the franchise proliferation, cloning the concept globally. That's how he went from being a U.S. celebrity to a truly global media force.
Let's talk about that scale for a second. The sources really highlight the explosion of international versions. It shows how well the format travels. We saw Drag Race UK launch in 2019.
Huge success.
Huge. Canada's Drag Race in 2020, Drag Race Down Under in 2021, and there's so many others now. Plus all the spin-offs in the U.S. alone. It's dizzying. All-Stars, Drag U, the educational one.
Right, Drag U.
Secret Celebrity Drag Race, Global All-Stars. Yeah. The sheer volume of content is just,
Wow. He basically colonized the reality TV landscape with drag. And that content volume, it paid off massively. The crucial turning point, I think, for mainstream legitimacy came when the show moved from Logo, the niche channel, to VH1. That was for season 9 back in 2017. Yeah. That move signaled it wasn't just a gay cultural phenomenon anymore. It was becoming a mainstream television event.
Yeah, and the ratings really confirmed that cultural shift, don't they? That season 9 premiere, the one featuring Lady Gaga, it drew nearly 1 million viewers.
1 million viewers!
Which was the most watched episode at that time. It confirmed that RuPaul had successfully transitioned the art form he championed from the fringes right into essential appointment viewing for this vast, diverse audience.
And the television industry, they rewarded that dominance with just unprecedented recognition. This whole era is defined by his Emmy domination. It's staggering. He won his first Emmy for Outstanding Host for a reality competition program in 2016. And since then, he's won 8 times in that category alone, often consecutively.
8 times. That sustained excellence is why he holds 14 Primetime Emmy Awards total, cementing his status, as we said, as the most awarded person of color in Emmy history. I mean, you look at the landscape of competition reality TV, nobody has achieved that specific, sustained hosting success. It's a category he essentially owns now.
Yeah, he really does. And this professional achievement, it brought significant high honors, establishment recognition. In 2017, he was included in the Time 100 list, most influential people.
Right.
Then in 2018, he gets a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, became the first drag queen to achieve that highly visible distinction. These are markers of legitimacy, stuff that very few underground artists ever achieve.
And his influence wasn't just restricted to TV hosting either, which is interesting. In 2022, he expanded his business acumen, right? And secured a Tony Award for Best Musical.
As a producer, that's the key thing. A producer for the Pulitzer Prize-winning show, A Strange Loop.
Right, so it's not just about being the face anymore.
Exactly. While he's often mentioned in that ego potential conversation, winning as a producer shows this shift in focus. It proves he's operating now not just as the talent, the face, but as a genuine media investor, a power broker, capable of bankrolling and pushing these high-level, critically acclaimed artistic endeavors.
Okay, so beyond Drag Race, he kept expanding his TV footprint, sometimes successfully, sometimes maybe less so. He hosted Good Work in 2015, that plastic surgery talk show, and Gay for Play game show starring RuPaul from 2016 to 2017.
Yeah.
He also tried to return to daytime TV, didn't he? With that syndicated talk show RuPaul in 2019. That one was pretty short-lived.
Yeah, the market test of that 2019 show is really interesting, I think. It kind of suggested that while the Drag Race format built around charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent is just unstoppable, the appetite for a traditional daytime talk show featuring him might be more limited. It seems the public wants the host of the competition, the expert on drag, maybe more than the general-purpose talk show host persona, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. He also moved into scripted content. Created and starred as Rudy Red in that Netflix series, AJ and the Queen, in 2020.
Right, the one about the drag queen traveling across the country with a kid.
Yeah, that show was also short-lived, wasn't it?
Mm.
Suggests maybe his ultimate strength really lies in that reality and entertainment space, though he keeps popping up, right? Hosted Saturday Night Live 2020, and he's currently hosting the revival of the game show Lingo on CBS.
Right. And we absolutely have to acknowledge the massive literary output during this period, too, which serves both as like a personal narrative and a guide to his philosophy. After his first autobiography back in '95, Letting It All Hang Out, he released Guru in 2018, which is more philosophical, more of a guide. And then most recently, that deeply personal memoir, The House of Hidden Meanings, just came out in early 2024. These books, they provide the philosophical backbone, really, to his whole media empire, making sure his message, self-acceptance, defiance is documented.
He really is a master curator, isn't he? Of his own history and his own myth, ensuring his perspective is the dominant one across all these platforms.
Well, the undeniable truth is that RuPaul is just this monumental cultural figure. Mike.com called him arguably the most commercially successful drag queen in America. We mentioned Fortune earlier, too. And that commercial success is directly credited with creating this unprecedented wider exposure, effectively pulling drag queens from being this specialized LGBTQ subculture right into the absolute mainstream spotlight.
And it's not just entertainment, is it? He's always maintained that the act of doing drag is inherently political.
Always. He describes it as a very, very political act. Why? Because it actively challenges the status quo. This is the core of his philosophical resistance, right? Rooted maybe in that early trauma we talked about, rejecting fixed identities.
Yeah.
That rejection is summed up perfectly in his statement. Drag says, I'm a shapeshifter, I do whatever the hell I want at any given time. That philosophy, that radical self-determination, that's what resonates so deeply with his audience, I think, and it acts as the engine for his empire.
His cultural impact is so vast. I mean, the sources show it's literally entered the scientific classification system.
Isn't that wild? In 2020, a species of Australian soldier fly was named Opaluma RuPaul.
Opaluma RuPaul.
Yeah, and the scientists specifically cited the insect's, quote, costume of shiny metallic rainbow colors as the reason. I mean, that's peak cultural penetration right there, having a fly named after you because it looks fabulous.
That's amazing. Okay, so beyond TV and books, he built this whole entrepreneurial infrastructure to support the drag ecosystem itself.
Right. In 2014, he launched that highly successful podcast, RuPaul, What's the Tea, with Michelle Visage, which serves as this crucial behind-the-scenes voice, offering life advice, conversations with guests. It really cements the bond with his audience.
And he didn't just create a digital ecosystem, he created physical ones too. Through his production company, World of Wonder, he launched RuPaul's DragCon LA in 2015, then DragCon NYC in 2017.
Yeah, and these aren't just fan gatherings, they are massive conventions. Panels, performances, meet and greets. They operate as this major economic driver for the drag community itself, proving the commercial viability of the art form on a huge scale.
He also entered the beauty market directly, didn't he?
He did. Back in 2013, launched his debut makeup line and that unisex perfume, Glamazon, and he specifically emphasized that glamour should be accessible to all. Which aligns perfectly with his whole philosophy, right? That transformation is available to everyone, regardless of gender identity.
Okay, let's shift a bit to his direct activism, which has become increasingly urgent, hasn't it? Especially given the political climate around LGBTQ rights. He's a very active supporter of voter registration. Cites that alarming statistic, 1 in 5 LGBTQ adults aren't registered to vote.
Yeah, and he uses the leverage of his franchise to promote this. You see it all the time. Contestants from Drag Race frequently work as ambassadors with groups like Drag Out the Vote. And then following that surge of anti-drag initiatives across the U.S., like the Tennessee Adult Entertainment Act in March 2023, he acted pretty swiftly.
Right. He, along with MTV and the World of Wonder producers, they established the Drag Defense Fund,
which is maintained by the ACLU. So this is a direct financial response, right, to combat legislation that attempts to restrict drag performance. It signals his willingness to leverage his considerable corporate power to protect the art form.
And he's made his political stance pretty clear over the years.
Oh, yeah. Publicly endorsed Hillary Clinton in 2016, expressed dismay at the election outcome. His core message to his audience is always about action. He called on followers to vote, saying, and this is a key quote, I think, a social media post has never been as powerful as a registered vote, urging people to get, quote, those stunt queens out of office.
Okay, now we really need to dedicate sufficient impartial space here to the complexity of his identity and his sometimes troubled relationship with the transgender community.
Yeah.
Because these are really necessary points of scrutiny and evolution in his career.
Absolutely. And the sources, like Vox, for instance, they highlight this fundamental philosophical difference that seems to be at the heart of the conflict. RuPaul's core philosophy, as we said, is to mock identity, mock gender stereotypes, view them as fluid social constructs, which contrasts sharply with the transgender community's crucial need to have their identity, their gender, their existence taken seriously and affirmed, not mocked.
Right. And this tension, it really manifested most acutely around 2014, didn't it? The show faced significant criticism from trans activists, former contestants, over the use of specific language, notably terms like tranny and that challenge phrase, you've got she-male. Those terms were rightly criticized as transphobic and hurtful by many.
They were, and the producers did respond. They removed the you've got she-male phrase from subsequent broadcasts, replacing it with the now iconic, she already done had her sis. However, RuPaul initially defended the term tranny. He argued it referred primarily to transvestites and drag queens using cross-dressing for performance, not solely to trans women, which was how many in the trans community experienced the term.
And the controversy escalated even further in 2018. There was that interview in The Guardian.
Right, that interview, where he suggested that a post-transition trans woman would probably not be accepted as a contestant on Drag Race.
Yeah, and then he compounded the issue.
He did, by comparing trans drag queens who had transitioned to athletes using performance-enhancing drugs, implying they had some kind of unfair advantage in the competition against cisgender male queens. That sparked significant backlash across the community, accusations of gatekeeping, transphobia.
And that backlash was powerful enough that it did elicit a public response from him.
It did. He eventually issued an apology via Twitter, expressed regret for the hurt caused by his remarks, and he clarified that the only criteria for contestants were charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. The CUNT acronym, the core values of the show.
And it's crucial to track the tangible outcome of that shift, isn't it?
Yeah.
What happened next?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Drag Race has since featured numerous trans women contestants. Peppermint was the first to compete throughout her season as an openly trans woman. And then, in a major statement about full inclusion, the show welcomed its first openly trans man contestant, Gottmik, in 2021. So the show has evolved, often it seems, driven by the criticism it faced, which is important.
Okay. Finally, let's turn to his personal life. And this striking contrast that sometimes emerges between his political advocacy and his business interests. He met the painter Georges Labar back in 1994 at the Limelight nightclub in New York City, another iconic spot, and they married in 2017. He's spoken openly about having an open marriage, stating he doesn't want to put restraints on the person he loves.
Right. And the couple splits their time between L.A. and, well, their truly massive property in Wyoming, a 60,000-acre ranch. 60,000 acres.
Which is huge. And this enormous landholding, It leads directly to the most significant environmental controversy surrounding his personal business practices.
Yeah, that controversy really erupted in 2020 after he revealed, quite candidly on a podcast, I believe, that he and LeBar lease mineral rights on the ranch and sell water to oil companies, explicitly allowing fracking on the land.
Fracking, which immediately led to criticism, accusations of hypocrisy, especially because Drag Race has, featured environmental awareness themes and challenges sometimes.
Exactly. And the issue is quite severe, according to the sources. Public maps apparently indicate at least 35 active oil and gas wells currently operating on that 60,000-acre property. So it means the political advocate who funds the Drag Defense Fund is also, simultaneously, financially invested in a practice that's highly criticized for its environmental impact.
It creates this fascinating and yet difficult tension, doesn't it? It proves that even the most revolutionary cultural figures have to navigate these really complicated commercial realities of land, capital, and ownership. Hashtags, tag, outro. Wow, what an incredible journey, really. Self-creation and ultimately domination. From the trauma of a broken home, the obscurity of Atlanta public access, RuPaul leveraged that 90s commercial success into this global multi-platform dynasty of Drag Race. He truly turned an underground art form into a corporate engine, defining so much of popular culture along the way.
Yeah, the central duality of his career and maybe his lasting legacy is exactly that. How his foundational philosophy of drag as political resistance, a challenge to this status quo of fixed identity, how that manages to coexist with the demands of managing this enormous, highly commercial and sometimes environmentally contentious business empire. He truly is the shapeshifter he claimed to be, capable of operating in activist spaces, artistic spaces, and corporate spaces all at the same time.
He didn't just change the rules. He kind of became the one writing them.
Right. Exactly. And as you, the listener, consider his monumental success and his central role in promoting political action, specifically through creating the Drag Defense Fund to fight anti-LGBTQ legislation, it does raise an important question, I think, for you to mull over as you finish this deep dive. Given his clear ethical stance on civil rights, how does his financial involvement in environmentally criticized practices, like allowing fracking on his massive Wyoming ranch, how does that force us to reassess or at least complicate the public perception of his role as a complete and consistent political and moral cultural voice? It's the ultimate tension, maybe, between philosophy and profit, something to think about.